Good afternoon and welcome to this week's reading. I'm so excited to be here to do this for you. This week, I kind of was looking at the idea of when the universe gifts you with something to share, what questions arise for you between receiving the message and sharing it? And when I was, kind of leaning into that idea, I started to think of the image of, so the message being received is a door, and then expressing the message out is another door. And we're looking at what happens from when we get it to when we let it go. And if you think of that as like a hallway, then there's this whole space between when we receive a message and we let the message go that we can sometimes struggle with. When the message comes in, sometimes people are like, okay, what's the fastest way I can get down this hallway and get the message out? Because it's either overwhelming or they're very excited or there's a lot of things going on that they want to share with people. And so there's this idea that I have to get it out, I have to get it out. So they race down the hallway without even really taking time to sit with the message and see what the message is telling them first before they go and share it with other people. Then there's people that just sit there patiently, okay, I'm waiting for the right people, I'm waiting for the right time, I'm waiting for the right space. And it's very important to have that happen. And then other people actually use it to sit with it for themselves and to find out, well, what does this message really want to be able to be expressed properly? Does it want to be shared verbally? Does it want to be shared in image? Does it want to be shared in movement? Does it want to be shared in a business or in a podcast? Or there's so many different ways that the messages can be shared. And what we're being asked is to remember that it's less really about the message and how the message goes through the process of being, delivered to us who receives it, and then sitting with it and allowing it to make the changes and the revelations that we need to go through. And then does it end there or does it move on to someone else? Because that's the big piece that we forget is sometimes we get these messages that are only meant for us, that are part of our continued development, part of our continued growth, and that's where the message ends. And so if you're like me and you've had an experience where something comes in and you're like, oh my God, this is so exciting, I have to tell everybody about it. And then when you go to share, either you're ridiculed or you're cast aside or you're asked to shut up, or in worst case scenarios, you're hated for what it is that you're trying to share because it can be, say, jarring to someone else's point of view. Or, like you go to share it and it just doesn't come out. You stumble over your tongue. You have all of a sudden you have no words to be able to express what it is. And then your ecstasy and your joy and your excitement is just totally buried in that. And when you have those experiences, it can then be very, very difficult to keep that excitement the next time a message comes in, because you think of all the times where you were shut down or where the message landed poorly. And so it's really important to remember that between the message and the acclaim that you get, or the poor reception that you get, there is a hallway that we are being asked to kind of sit with what's going on so that we can have the opportunity to basically engage with this message the way it needs to be engaged with, so that whatever it is that we end up sharing is the highest energy of the message, and not even the purest version of the message, but basically the message gets to go through us. It's translated through our body, through our experience, so that what we're sharing externally is the best translated version of the message that we can possibly carry. Otherwise, think about telephone, and you get a message and you pass it on to someone else and it gets distorted. And then the next person passes it on and it gets slightly more distorted. And as it goes on, the message gets completely distorted because it's a speed. People are like, okay, I have to pass it on before I forget what was said, instead of sitting there and going, well, what are the parts that I actually do remember and what makes that important? So today's reading, the purpose for today's reading is to explore the foundational pieces a universal message might need before it is ready to be shared, right? Like, so that's staying in that hallway and looking and saying, well, what is it that needs to come out for this message to be able to be conveyed in its purest essence, right? Because sometimes it's not about the words, it's about the essence of what it is that's coming through. So what I'm going to start to shuffle into the cards right now is the question, what will you find in the space between the message and expression? So what will you find in the space between message and expression? Shuffle that nicely into the cards. One. All right. All right. One, two, three, four, five. And then we had another one that has a little bit of something for us at the end. All right. So our first card asks, what expression greets you in the hallway? So when the message comes in and we end up in that liminal hallway space, what is it that's going to be greeting us? The sorry, the Eight of Swords is what greets us. There's that perfect example of you try to say something and it doesn't come out. So the Eight of Swords is fear and apprehension. And I think that could possibly be going back to times where we've received these messages and we doubt ourselves, right? Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe this isn't what I think it is. Maybe this message isn't for me. Who am I to share a message like this? Nobody wants to listen to me, right? That's everything that's greeting us as soon as we enter the hallway, which that in and of itself can lead us to two actions. One is that it shuts us down completely and we're like, go tell somebody else. We don't want this message. Or it leads to like a physical reaction that is so uncomfortable that we race to getting it out to somebody else so that we can basically hand the baton off to someone else and say, again, give this to somebody else, right? In one form, we're asking the universe to give it to somebody else and to just overlook us like the big eye of Mordor. And the other one is like, okay, so you gave this to me. Oh my God, I don't want this. I'm going to run off and I'm going to pass it to the very first person that I can find that I can hand it to. That way I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's not my problem anymore. And the thing is the fear that we are met with in this liminal space has something to tell us. It is here because it is a wounded part. It is a hurt part. It is a scared part of ourselves that has been hurt at some point. It has nothing to do with the message and more of the experience that we're putting around, the stories that we're building around these messages. And when I spoke about translation earlier, fear is going to be the major distorter of any messages that we try to share. So if you meet the message and there's fear, then what the hallway is asking you to do is spend time with the fear, work with the fear, understand the fear, heal the fear, and clear the fear so that when you get to the door to share the message, you're now sharing from a place of calm. You're from a place that's been healed by going through this process instead of just taking the fear and handing it off to someone else, basically. Next, we ask, how can you best embody this message? Because sometimes, again, if you're spending the time to see what the message is saying to you first, because it came to you first, even if your reaction is give it to somebody else, the message has chosen you. And so now it's like, how do you embody it? How do you take the message that has been handed to you? And I always struggle with this word, internalize it and make it part of who you are. And here we have the Five of Swords. So we seem to be dealing with a bit of some conflicts here, which makes a lot of sense when you're dealing with the uncertainty and the unknown. Even sometimes the risk of being seen because you have something to share. So the Five of Swords, when we're looking at how you embody this message, what we're asking you to do is find the places in yourself that the fight or flight is sitting in, right? Because sometimes when I think of the Five of Swords, I think of it as that, is that I either want to give up and run away or I'm going to fight to the end. And I think even now with the idea of the fawn state, like that's in there too. This Five of Swords is that pivotal moment where the nervous system has the opportunity to choose a situation, an action, a word that is going to allow the nervous system to start to calm, to expand, to breathe, or it's going to make the opposite happen where the nervous system is going to continue to kick into that fight flight. And so, as you're dealing with this message, if you're dealing with the nervous system that's caught in fight and flight, the prefrontal cortex has turned off and is saying, sorry, we're out to lunch. The amygdala is now going to take over, and we're just going to let them choose whatever it is that they want to do. And we're just going to go sit over here and zone out. And so, as you're engaging with this, the best way for you to embody what's going on is to tune into the nervous system. How is your nervous system reacting to this? And what is your nervous system asking for you to be able to flip out of the fight flight and into, I might get this wrong, the parasympathetic. Because I always get those two mixed up, whether it's the sympathetic or the parasympathetic. But it's asking you to kind of get into that more calm, relaxed state where the prefrontal cortex can come back online. And once we're in that calmer state, we're asking now, because now we can engage with the message in the hallway now. Like we've understood where the fear comes from. We've allowed ourselves to come out of the fight flight reaction to calm the nervous system. And now we can actually look at what energetic channel is this message coming through. And now we've got our first major card. So we've got it as the Emperor. And so to me, the Emperor would be the dominant energetic path that you have. Because the Emperor is the one that sets the rules up, that sets the boundaries, that creates the space, the frameworks, right? Like this is the main frame of the whole system is held by the Emperor. This is the one that makes sure that blockages are cleared out. This is the one that makes sure that everything is running as smoothly as possible and that holds people accountable for when things go wrong. And so now you can sit there and go, and this is really a nice place because while you're in this hallway, what you're asking yourself with the appearance of the Emperor is, what is your dominant energetic channel? For me, somatic is kind of like where my energy goes through first. So I will feel things somatically. My body speaks to me, right? For somebody else, it might be some other kind of energetics that kick in. It might also be some kind of wherever their clair powers lie, right? That might be where they're coming from. And I was kind of rolling my eyes at the word of powers is what it was, right? So you have people that are claircognizant, clairsentient, clairauditory, right? Like there's a lot of different ways that people can connect. And I think that's what this hallway is asking us. What is your fear? What is it that you're afraid of? What is it that's got you running scared? And once you solve that, you can say, okay, so now how is the message coming through you? What is your dominant? What is your, I'm getting a message pathway that you can tune into? And that's what's going to be the one that's going to allow that clarity to really come through. Because if you're tuning in out of fear to the wrong channel, you're going to get the wrong program playing for you. So now once we've done all of that, we can look at what pathway to expression wants to be created. So if the message is coming in this way, how and in what form does it want to go out? And here we have the Eight of Swords. Sorry, the Eight of Wands, because we had the Eight of Swords already. So we have the Eight of Wands, and the Eight of Wands is saying it wants to go out in the clearest, quickest way possible. The Eight of Wands for me, I see it sometimes as things are speeding up, but I've also experienced the Eight of Wands as holding your cards close to your heart in the sense of whatever you're doing, you're going to do it in a way that is unique to you, that makes sense to you, and that you're not going to get tripped up by other people. So that means whatever it is that you're going to do, you tell people about it afterwards. They're not entitled to an explanation, and you're not needing permission to do whatever you need to do with this message. So with the Eight of Wands coming here, it really does make a lot of sense that once you've spent most of the hallway dealing with the fear and regulating your nervous system, and tuned into the channel that the messages are coming through, by the time you've done all of that, you are a clear conduit, a clear channel for the message to come through. And now what comes through is also going to be the exact way that it needs to go. And because we're dealing with wands and we're dealing with fire, what we're looking at is we're looking at purification of the creative process. So whatever you do, there could actually be fire directly connected. You could say, make something out of clay and put it through the kiln and fire it. You could create a candle ritual that allows you to have clarity. You could go stand out in the sun, right? So there might be some kind of actual fire that your creative process is asking you to do. But then when you also think about the creative process, a lot of times we're like, I'm on fire. And there's a lot of fire metaphors that we use. And that's what you want to be looking at is as you're getting ready to put the message out there or to really internalize the message for yourself, where's the fire? Where's the passion? Where's the drive? Where's the motivation? Where's that urgency that's calling you forward? Because that's going to be saying that you are still connected to the channel that is coming in, that you are still in your, uh, healed nervous system, and that the fear has been dealt with. Because if any of those prior steps come in, then you're going to start to stumble and you're going to start to see that you're hitting walls, that you're tripping over hurdles and all that kind of stuff. So how smoothly and how quickly you move again down the next phase of the hallway is going to be determined by how well you went through the things that had come before. And so now, what challenges or conflicts need to be cleared before the message can be shared? So as you're getting closer to the sharing door, justice pops up. And it's interesting that now we have two major arcana cards. We have the Emperor, and then we jump right through to Justice, because the Emperor and Justice do share a very common energetics in regards to who punishes, right? So the Emperor is an external power that comes out and says, you broke my rules, I get to punish you. Justice, on the other hand, comes and says, something is out of balance, and so we need to right the balance. It's not about punishment. It's about consequences and balances. And I have said this many times that consequences can be positive or negative. When justice doles out a consequence, it is non-judgmental. And we are the ones that say, ooh, that was bad. Ooh, that was good, based on the I guess the price that we have to pay or the rewards that we get to bring in based on what is going to help balance the scales. But that is what justice is saying, is that the challenge and the conflicts that you're going to have to face as you're like going through this is everything that came before, right? So justice says, if there is fear in this, the scale is out of balance. If you are in fight or flight, the scale is out of balance. If you're tuning into the incorrect channel, or if you're pushing and forcing the message to come through into a certain form, into a certain way, it is out of balance. And if you're rushing too fast on the wrong fuel, meaning if you are facing obstacles and roadblocks and hitting walls and still trying to push through, the scales are out of balance. And so the final thing of the challenges and the conflicts are all going to come on what we are doing with each of these different pieces as we're moving from one door to the next. And justice will just say, if this is happening, you are out of balance. And so when justice says you are out of balance, the consequence is that you need to stop and rebalance yourself. And the interesting thing about this is because justice is non-judgmental, justice doesn't come and say, you're out of balance because you're doing it wrong. You're out of balance because this is the bad choice. What justice is saying, something in this situation is throwing everything out of balance. And sometimes what you're doing is too much of a good thing. And so it's really important to be able to remember that justice is just saying something is out of balance. And you need to find out what is out of balance so that to move forward, you need to reinstate that balance. And that is going to be completely up to you how you do it. But as long as you're out of balance, the message will always come out garbled. The message will always come out and land in a way contrary to what you envisioned, to what you want, to what you hoped for it to come out. And so now we're left with the final card that we got, which interestingly enough is the Six of Pentacles, which is kind of the whole thing of this card is receiving. And I think it's really interesting that we end the reading with a message from, the universe that basically, hey, remember, this is all a process of receiving. Nothing in this whole process says you have to give, right? And I started that at the beginning that said, like, sometimes the message that you get is like the message you get is for you. And whatever you do with it, sometimes it's just to sit with it yourself and enjoy the beauty of it. The message doesn't say, here, receive this so that you can go and do something and give something and make something and end. The message is just, I have something for you that is going to make your life better, that is going to make your life easier, and you just have to receive it. It is us that receive the message and then suddenly start to think, oh my goodness, I was given this message and now I have to go and I have to be the one that shares this message out all over the world. That's our ego that does that, right? And so if that is something that we find that is what we want to do with the messages we receive, then that pathway of the Eight of Wands is going to be super clear. We're going to hit on that super highway and everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be wonderful. And we're going to get to the end of the process and go, holy crap, that was like so easy. How did that end up working out so smoothly? But if we're not in it to receive what is being given to us and just appreciate that we were chosen to receive this, all hell could break loose, right? And we may never find our way out of the hallway. So with that, it's really interesting that we have, first of all, we have the Two Swords, which is mirrored in Justice, which is like a powerhouse sword card. And both of these are all about perception, right? Because the Five of Swords is all about the perception of what does it take? Like, do I perceive myself to be at risk? And if I do, fight, flight, freeze. Do I perceive myself to be safe? If so, then I can go ahead. The Eight of Swords, do I perceive this situation to be dangerous? And if so, then my fear keeps me trapped. Do I perceive it to be dangerous? If not, then the world opens back up. We also have the parallel between the Eight of Swords and the Eight of Wands, meaning balance, right? And the fact that the Eight of Wands showed up so this was the first one, and then we had two cards in between, and we had the other one. So if it was a 4-card reading, these would have been the bookends, balance. And then we have Justice that comes after, right? And the interesting thing is this is a 5-card reading, but having the Five of Pentacles, balance. There's balance in all of this. We have 2 major arcana cards. We have 2 sword cards. And then we have 1 each of these. So we have an air and a fire card. And the thing is this is where I get really fun in this, is that air and fire can also balance each other out, right? So this whole reading, my God, has been all about balance and finding the balance as you're going from the one door to the next. This just, when this happens, it just boggles my mind. So with that, I hope you find something in this reading to help bring balance to whatever it is you're receiving and how you're figuring out how to get it out there, if that is even where it needs to go. I have really enjoyed, as you can see, I've really enjoyed this reading, and I look forward to seeing you again next week for our weekly reading. In the meantime, take the best of care, and I will see you around the webs. Take care.